Um, First, thank you all for coming out tonight. What this project what this project is the Noroton Avenue, West Avenue intersection improvement plans. This is our first public meeting. I just want to do some quick introductions, if I would. My name is Ed Gentile. I'm the Director of Public Works for the town. With me tonight is Jeremy Ginsberg, Director of Planning and Zoning. He's sitting in the front. Here to my left, Kristen Soloway from Fuss & O'Neill. She is the Vice President and the project lead for this. And Mark Mancini is manning the computer now, but he'll be up later to speak with you. He is a transportation engineer involved in this project. I do want to mention also in our audience today is the First Selectman, Jamie Stevenson, for our town, and a Selectman, Susan Marks, who is AKA a resident tonight, so she mentioned that to me. Just a quick project background, if you will. This public meeting is basically an opportunity for the town now, first time, to kind of roll out what we've been looking at for the last couple of years for improvements to this intersection. We have some major queuing issues up there, some safety issues, turning radius issues, if you will. So this is an opportunity to roll this out to the residents and the business owners. There's also a possibility that once the plans have been completed and we've put it out to bid and hired a contractor to move forward, there may be another opportunity to have another public meeting just to roll out how we're going to do it. This being one of probably the major intersections, north and south and east and west in town. I think it may mandate that I come in front of you again and at least present to the residents how we're going to get this done and how the impact may or may not impact your lives or the businesses that are out there at those intersections. After the bidding is complete and the contractor is hired and ready to start, there will be a press release put out to the public with the start dates and the schedule. We are attempting to have this project done in one construction cycle. That would be through an April through a December. I'm assuming if there are no long lead items that we put in the project, which would be traffic signal equipment, the big poles that the lights are on, then this project will end sooner than December. Not knowing how the contractor is going to address certain issues with staging and phasing, I can't give you a hard date yet, but we're trying to condense it into one construction cycle or less time if we can. Just a short kind of how did we get here type of thing. In June of 2014, when I came on board with the town of Darien, this was one of the first intersections that Jeremy brought me to take a look at. And we always had it on our radar from the start. It became, back in 2016, a funding opportunity through LOTSIP came available. We put together an application and requested $1.2 million in funds for construction and right-of-way acquisitions. The LOTSIP project, so you folks know what that is a local transportation capital improvement program, and it's federally funded. Town share to get this project started would cover the design costs, and those costs were $160,000. The appropriation, special appropriation, was approved back in March in 2017, which kicked off our project. This project will incorporate changes we believe will be a huge benefit to the public. It'll allow better movement of vehicles through the intersection by adding left turning lanes in two directions. And finally, after this meeting, the town, that would be Jeremy and myself, will proceed with easement acquisition phase of the project. This means we'll have appraisals done on the properties that are impacted. We will meet with those property owners to discuss appropriate compensation. Currently, there are 7 total properties impacted by a permanent, temporary, permanent easement, temporary easement, or both. Let's see, I'm going to introduce Kristen Soloway here in a second, but if you would, please save all your questions to the end when she's completed. It's a very short presentation. It's only 10 slides. It'll give you a gist for the project. And at the end of that, we'll answer any questions you may have.
Good evening. As Ed said, my name is Kristen Soloway. I'm a vice president and I'm the project manager here. I'm with Fuss & O'Neill. We're an engineering firm in Manchester. It's been a couple years since we've started this project for the town. The town selected us in, I think it was 2016. And we've been working away to design the intersection, but we've been in a little holding pattern, and I'll go into that as we move down. But this is an important intersection in the town. There's, there's 4 different, entities in the area. So you're a couple blocks away from the train station, the high school, the middle school. This is a big, a direct route to Stamford. It's highly congested. You get a car turning left, it blocks up the intersection. So, we've been looking at ways to, what's the best way to improve it for the funding that you have. That's always part of what we're looking to do, is make sure that any municipality gets the best improvement for the money that's available. Pedestrian safety is also a concern. We want to make sure that there's ample ADA accessible ramps, that there's timings to get pedestrians across the street. So that's part of our improvements. So we've been developing solutions to combat congestion and pedestrian safety. So we're going to add 2 left-hand turn lanes, one in the northbound direction and one in the westbound direction. It's going to be a full traffic signal replacement. And as I stated earlier, some pedestrian facilities, pedestrian push buttons, the heads that show the walk, don't walk symbols, and there'll be full concurrent phasing for pedestrians in the signal timings. This is just an overview map showing where our project area is. It's the red star down to the south, Darien High School's to the north, and the middle school and the train station are to the west. So this gives a little bit of a project timeline. As Ed talked about, this project has a LOTSIP grant application. There's a lot that goes into it. It's, we have to do a full project estimate and some preliminary design, conceptual design. It goes to WestCog, which is the Western Area Council of Governments, and they do pass it along to CONDOT, and they get approval from their LOTSIP department. They have a couple of engineers that review all the LOTSIP applications for the state. In April of 2017, we had a kickoff meeting, and that's really when we started design with the Department of Public Works and your Planning and Zoning Commission. And we moved into preliminary design in a few months later. So we've been since June waiting of 2017 for CONDOT to really give us our commitment to fund letter. And it takes some time to go through the state process to make sure that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted and we move on. And so here we are tonight. It's 2019. Once we get past this and the appraisal process, things should move along. We're looking to move this along as fast as we can over the next year and get you into construction. I'll turn it over to Mark. Mark's going to get into a little bit more of the design and kind of go into detail at each corner.
Alright, good evening guys. So I'm a transportation engineer with Fuss & O'Neill. I'll be aiding in the design work here with Kristen as the lead. So the overall objective of this project, like Kristen and Ed said, is to really alleviate some of the traffic and some of the queuing occurring on the northbound and...
Can you speak a little bit louder, please?
Of course, yeah. So the main objective here is to alleviate the queuing concerns, the traffic congestion on primarily what we found are on the northbound and westbound approaches to the intersection. So if you guys have noticed that as well. So currently the intersection has one lane approach in each direction with no left turn lanes. So significant queuing occurs, like Kristen said, when someone's taking a left turn, and it's pretty hard to get around those vehicles in such a tight space, tight cross section there. So, like I said, northbound and westbound directions have the most queuing, so those are the approaches for which we'll add those left turn lanes in. So in addition to any traffic concerns, we also want to alleviate any pedestrian safety concerns and make sure we're providing updated equipment for PEDs and really try to connect all the existing pedestrian access points into our proposed design. So as you see here, in order to accommodate these left turn lanes, unfortunately, there is some roadway widening. The existing cross width is not adequate. So as you see here in the orange, this will be our roadway widening portion of the project. As you can see, we have roadway widening occurring on each of the four corners, with the most significant roadway widening occurring on the northeast and southwest corners of the intersection there in orange. Highlighted in pink, you'll see updated pedestrian accessible ramps, ADA and ProAg, up to ADA and ProAg standards there. So under current or existing conditions, crosswalks are supplied across the southern leg of the intersection and across the eastern leg of the intersection. So as we see in a couple of slides, what we're going to do is we're going to provide crossings at each of the approaches so we can safely and adequately cross at either point. So what we'll see here, we'll see two typical sections, one on Noroton Avenue and one on West Avenue. So on these typical sections, looking there really clearly, you'll see some of the roadway widening occurring on either side of the roadway, on Noroton and West Avenue. But what I really want to point out here is the existing pavement structure will be milled to its fullest capacity, 2 inches down, to reduce the overall cost of the project. Full depth construction will occur where we're providing any widening. So that's a measure to reduce the cost of the project, but that's the main point I want to point out here. Here we go. In this slide, you'll see a left-hand turn lane in the northbound direction on Noroton at the bottom of the screen, and then you will see another left turn lane on the westbound approach towards the right hand of the screen there. This is a kind of a little better view than looking at the plans, a little more understandable with some with some line striping and whatnot in there. Like I said, on each of the approaches, we're going to implement new crosswalks and pedestrian ramps, so you'll see those in the center of the intersection, and an update to the traffic signal there. So with the modifications being made to implement the left-hand turn lanes in, there's a need to update the signal as well. So we're excited about that. Coordinating the signal timings and whatnot to help alleviate that traffic. So, and like I said, with the roadway widening here, there are property easements being taken, permanent and temporary easements, with the biggest easement occurring on the northeast corner of the intersection there. You'll see shaded in a red and purple magenta color there. So with those will be temporary easements, and permanent easements you'll see on the southwest, southeast, and northwest corners of the intersection. Those are shaded in a green color. So those of you familiar, we have the gas station there on the bottom right, and I believe another gas station auto body shop the bottom left there. So those are going to be the biggest impacts at our intersection. So, and just remaining project going forward, like Ed said, we'd love to, complete this as soon as possible. So on our end at Fuss and O'Neill, final design for review by the Connecticut DOT, that would be a 90% plan set. We anticipate completing that in spring 2019 coming up, with final design plans 100% being completed, fall 2019, early summer. So from there on out, we would go into the bidding process and get this out into construction. So I'll open the floor up
I've just got
to.
one other.
Okay.
I guess that's good.
One more thing.
Should probably talk a little bit about maintenance and protection of traffic and construction operations. I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. Business access will be maintained during construction. That's always a concern. There may be some alternating one-way traffic for a really minimal amount of time during a day. To be during, minimal, not during the peak hour. Construction operations, that they'll stop, by the time rush hour, in the evening. For this type of project, impact should be minimal during construction. And it should take place over one season. Yes.
Are you gonna build the sidewalk over, like, I know West Avenue only on one side there are, but on the other one where you have the
In
orange
the
there,
northeast corner.
there are no. So I see that you are creating a new lane, but does it include the sidewalks or not?
Can you?
On the northeast corner, she's talking.
Northeast corner, the north side of West Avenue, because the
Northeast
right
corner
side.
on this.
Yeah, over like on.
So
this
there's
side.
no sidewalk
On that side.
proposed on this side of the road. right?
Okay.
The sidewalk will come down Noroton Ave and terminate at the pedestrian ramp.
So like it is right now.
Correct.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
And these are preliminary designs. So.
And sorry.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So you were mentioning some properties there that we're gonna have this temporary and permanent easement. And you said that the owners are gonna be reached out to. When is that gonna happen?
Yeah. Just so Channel 79 can hear my answer, so they all can hear it, actually. We are just in the process of hiring an appraiser to do appraisals on the properties or impacts to the properties by the easements, permanent or temporary. After he has completed that, we will instruct him to contact the property owners and have a meeting with them and show them what we had proposed with regards to compensation. And from that point forward, he'll give you kind of some guidelines on what what normally would happen next and what the property owner should do to avail themselves to more information. And we'll go.
Sorry, just to follow up, because we just had the tax assessment, a new thing going on right now.
Mhm.
So now these properties are going to be impacted by that, but then they might be again impacted by this thing. So how is that? Is that going to be reflected, or do we need to wait for the next tax assessment?
Your tax assessment that you're working on right now, it sounds like an appeal that you're going through. Is that true?
Yeah, it is an appeal, but regardless of that,
Yep.
whatever value is given at that point, if my property is going to be subject to an easement,
Yep.
the value should be, should
And-
change to reflect.
And I had a conversation with the tax assessor to ask him how this would impact properties and what would the property owners have, what abilities they would have to come to him and discuss the impacts. And he says with any type of encumbrance, such as an easement, there's generally a look to see if there's a benefit or some type of detriment, if you will. And of course, you can bring that to him with an appeal any time of the year, he said. Any year, you could bring that to him. And that's an opportunity for you to sit and go through the process and propose an appeal of some kind. So this one here would be standalone, which you're going through now. And then when we're done with our easement acquisition and we agree on whatever that compensation would be, and the impact and the size, you'd be able to go to him to discuss an appeal process. That's an opportunity for you to go and meet him again because things have changed.
And so if I don't go though, nothing will happen until the next tax assessment, which I'm not sure of. I think this one took 5 years, I think, from the previous one. So in 5 years, it's not gonna happen. Nothing's gonna happen to my property as a result of that, unless I go and do the appeal.
Yes, and I think that would be a recommendation I would give to any property owner that's going to have an easement, or discuss easements with us, is to, once we presented you with whatever findings we may have, you may want to go to the tax assessor and say, okay, this is what they proposed, how do I address this impact to my property? Is there a benefit? Is there something else I need to do? And we'll make that recommendation to all 7 of the property owners. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Joe Warren. I'm the chairman of the Darien Housing Authority. We own the property to the northeast, and we'll have the largest easement, as I understand it, from this project. We discussed it at our meeting last Tuesday night. As of today, we do not have any problem with the project. We will continue to monitor the process as we go through it. When we get a 100% plan, we'll continue to see what impact it will have on us. A couple of questions that came up, just to keep in the back of your mind as you go through this process. We have a building that is fairly close to where this construction is going to be going on. We want to know what the considerations are in terms of what time in the morning construction will start on this project, whether or not there will be any plans to do construction on the weekends. We're trying to prepare our tenants for whatever impact this may or may not have on them. As I said when I first came in here and looked at the drawing, we had hoped the large tree on Noroton Avenue would be saved, and apparently it is not going to be able to be saved. We know that ones on West Avenue are history. But we're pleased with the thought that rather than having a retaining wall, we'll regrade the property to have a gradual slope down to the road level. What we'll want to be looking at as we go through the final designs is what efforts will be made to look at landscaping in that rather large area that's going to be impacted for the housing authority. And the final consideration is, I hear what you're saying about an opportunity to put different lighting systems on that intersection to deal with pedestrian crossing, to deal with the left turn lanes, etc. Will the town take this opportunity to review the lighting, the timing of traffic lights on that entire section of Noroton Avenue? Because as we all know, from Hecker Avenue up to West Avenue, there's, I believe, 5 traffic lights, and there, as of today, there is no timing between those lights. The state controls some, the town controls some. They are not coordinated so that the traffic flows evenly. Will we be able to take this opportunity to look at that whole stretch and try to do something to get those lights timed properly?
Can I follow up on that? Because I'm John Bolton, I'm a neighbor.
It's going to be hard for me to answer all of those.
No, it's the same,
Okay.
it's the same thing Joe's asking, which
Sure.
is that so I live down West Avenue, about 5 houses from this, for 25 years. And part of the problem is that even if you have a left turn, there's nowhere to go. Because as Joe said, the traffic's backed up from Heights Road. And there's just, I mean, I've literally sat there and said, well, I could go if there's nobody coming eastbound, but I can't get in there because there's no room. And I guess the timing issue, that's why I want to say that they go together. That's one of my questions is this going to be coordinated with the Heights intersection as well? So.
Two very good questions. Let me do one first on the property with regards to construction timing, when we'll do it, when they're allowed to work. Generally speaking, a 7 a.m. start to a 4 o'clock in the afternoon work time is generally allowed. If it's something that is critical that we should look at, I'm not adverse to pushing to 8, but that's something I deal with the contractors on. I'd want to put that in the bid document so they would know what their timing is. Generally speaking, Saturdays, especially at this intersection, probably would be off limits. I don't think they need to work there. I think the road widening that they're going to be doing will allow them to work off the roadway and still allow for, if not two-way traffic, alternating two-way traffic. The slopes and grading are on part of the plan. That's why your temporary easement is so large. We want to make sure that we do provide a proper slope, and not a retaining wall. Now back to the timing part, the signals. It just so happens that we've been working closely with the engineering firm that was hired by Federal Realty, and they were tasked with timing the other 4 lights as part of their project and making lane improvements so that the vehicles no longer queue at Heights Road anymore because they can only go one lane straight. They've made some changes to allow that flow to continue. We've incorporated those changes and will with our timing along that whole corridor. We do control all of those 5 intersections. The state they make recommendations on their off-ramps and on-ramps. They try. We try to work with them. But it needs to be, controlled by one entity, and that is the town of Darien right now. So we did ask the Federal Realty people during their approval process to make sure they come up with a timing plan and a lane configuration that improved this whole area, this whole corridor. So that was incorporated in part of their project, and we're going to work and tie it into this intersection also. So the timings will change. And with the plan that I saw, I think the movement through this whole corridor will improve.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Have you figured in how much additional traffic is going to be the result of the rezoning of the shopping center?
I think you may have to take this one, Jeremy.
Jeremy Ginsberg, Planning and Zoning Director. And the question was the nearby developments of the redevelopment of the Noroton Heights Shopping Center and Federal Realty parcels, which are off of Heights Road, have those traffic increases been taken into account by Fuss & O'Neill during their design? And the answer is yes. We gave Fuss & O'Neill the traffic reports, the traffic studies, the full analysis. I think we even gave you the model, the traffic model, to figure out the best way to improve this. So that is really one reason that this took a while, is to receive that information, look at it, analyze it, and accommodate that traffic to the best. As Ed mentioned, Federal Realty will be making some associated changes to Noroton Avenue further south of this intersection, and the Noroton Heights Shopping Center folks will be making some improvements to the Hollow Tree Ridge Road intersection with Heights Road in that area to make things a little better over there. So you will see a number of improvements occurring, probably starting in 2020 would be my guess.
Do you have an estimate of approximately what the traffic increase percentage-wise? Is that a legitimate question?
Off the top of my head, I do not. What we're looking at here is, obviously, neither of those projects have started yet. They're both multiple-year projects. So best case right now, you're looking at a completion date on both the Federal Realty project and the Noroton Heights Shopping Center, say 2021. Maybe one of the projects goes out to 2022 or 2023. Off the top of my head, the Noroton Heights Shopping Center redevelopment, which is the area between Palmer's Market and Hollow Tree Ridge Road, is looking at the approval today. The amount of commercial square footage is within 500 square feet. So it's almost the same amount of commercial square footage. The change on that would be that obviously a number of new apartments. I think it was 86 apartments there. I don't remember on either project, if you will, the percent increase in traffic. I don't recall off the top of my head. I'd have to look something like that. John?
So this is more of a general, and it's kind of a borrowing trouble question, but we've already had tolls introduced into the legislature for I-95. The potential impact on local roads that people avoiding tolls could potentially follow. West Avenue is going to be, trucks are not going to be able to get under the trestle at the Darien train station. They're going to have to come up west and come to this intersection, get back to Route 1. Is the town or anyone thought about this? Is there any concern, anything that you guys could address in this manner during this project?
During this project?
Well, I mean, yeah, in other words, is this a project, I'm just worried that we're going to see a lot more tractor trailers rolling down West Avenue. We do get some traffic already because it rings in, that's fine. I mean, it's part of what we live with there. But, I'd hate to see a significant increase, and I'm just curious what, as this hit the radar screens here is really what I'm asking.
I can speak, and maybe Kristen can speak to it a little bit more. When we sent the plans, when Fuss and O'Neill sent the plans up to DOT looks at it from a number of different aspects. Handicapped access, pedestrian access, turning movements for different types of trucks and vehicles. I don't know if you could elaborate on that and whether you think DOT may have been so forward-looking to look at other aspects. But I do know they talked about oil trucks delivering to the gas stations. They talked about large size trucks that might go to Rings End. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yes, as part of the traffic study part of this, we do look at what type of vehicles come through the intersection. As far as tolls go at the moment, that's it really hasn't been discussed as for any municipality, I don't think, in the state yet. It's early. It's our Governor Lamont just took office, so it's still very early, and it's just not something that's really been thought of yet.
I'm happy to make a comment. Thanks for prompting the question, John.
Here to help.
Actually, the concern over toll avoidance in our local roads has been a topic of discussion among some neighbors, particularly some neighbors here on the Post Road. And it's important that we get in front of that with the local traffic authority, which is the police commission. There are some things that, should they be willing to do so, they can be proactive in looking at what local roadways we might be able to designate as no-through trucks. That would certainly help somewhat. So it is an issue that's top of mind for some of us, and we'll be watching it very closely. Some people don't believe that there's going to be toll avoidance. I believe there will be. So I want you to be assured that we're going to be watching it closely.
Thanks.
Is there a reason why on the West Avenue it is just on that side and nothing is being done on the side where the gas station is to kind of make it larger? Like, it seems that everything is gonna be made larger on one side but not on the other. And I know the gas station has a lot. So.
Lower right-hand corner?
Yes.
Okay. It just so happens the parcel, Darien Housing Authority parcel, we had an easement in place there when they did their development for roadway widening purposes. So that kind of introduced us to go in that direction. Plus the impacts are to the property itself with the grass and there's some trees, there's less of an impact to the concrete sidewalk, the driveway, the lighting that was, and telephone poles that were on the south side of West Avenue. So that kind of hinted us to stay in the north side of West Avenue, if you will. Yes, sir.
Yes, my question is the northbound going towards the high school. Right now, from the railroad bridge to West Avenue, it's one lane all the way. Is it going to be two lanes all the way going north towards the high school? So that there will be a left-hand turn lanes?
We're going to pull up the aerial.
The project that clear.
Okay. The question is going to be two lanes from the railroad tracks all the way up to West Avenue. That was your question?
Yes.
It will not be. What you will have is down at, starting at Heights Roads, there will be two lanes coming southbound and one lane northbound. And mid-block, where Jeremy has his pen right now, it will switch over. There'll be one lane southbound and two lanes northbound at the intersection, providing a left turn lane in the middle of the road, allowing for straight and right-hand turns in the right side of the intersection. Does that answer your question? There's not going to be just two dedicated lanes going northbound all the way up. That's not going to happen.
It's just going to be one lane.
It'll be one lane.
And then when it gets to the gas station.
It'll open up to provide a left turn lane. Yes, it'll be 2 lanes up in that section. Yes, ma'am?
So are those design available, like, other than tonight, if I wanna look at them again?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so how should I
You-
get them?
We have a set of prints here. You're always welcome to come to the DPW office or planning and zoning.
And put them on the town website as well.
We'll put the 30% on the town website, according to Jeremy.
Yes. Give us a day or two. but we'll
Sure,
have
Yeah,
it on
give
town
give us a
website.
day or two to get them on.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Folks, thank you very much for coming out. I hope this gave you some information that you can use. If there's people that you know that are in this area that, you know, have some questions or didn't know about the meeting or missed it, my phone number and email's on the website. Jeremy's the same. Please reach out. Stop by my office. I want to make sure that all the folks that do have some questions, we get them answered for them. Okay?
That's a print on the desk we can look at?
Right now, absolutely. Thank you very much, folks. Have a good night.
Thank you.